Welcome back, everybody, to Unconditional Surrender, published by GMT Games, designed by Salvatore Vasta. We are about ready to start into the August 1942 turn for the Germans and the Russians and everybody else. Getting close to the last turns of clear weather here in August. Weather phase is fair for everywhere. No one wants to declare war anyplace. The economy phase, we will pull up the national tracks here so you can take a peek. The Germans will be giving one to the Italians because the Italians need to fix up their fleets and airplanes and things. Two things. I miscounted the Russian willpower. I thought they started at 30. They actually started at 32. So I did take off 6 points, but it should have been at 26, not 24. And you want to play me if I'm playing the Western Allies. You really want me as a Western Ally enemy because I keep forgetting to give myself factories when I win combats against the Germans. I forgot to move it from 4 to 3 at the end of last turn in the strategic warfare phase. I have done so to correct it because I found it right away. So keep that in mind if you ever get to playing me in an online game. You want me to play the Western Allies because I don't keep track of my factories real well. Okay, that's the economy phases. We're going to go right on into strategic warfare. The Soviets are at +2, and the Germans are at +1. The Germans do have a submarines marker, but the British have an ultra. They figure the British are probably going to use that, so they're going to try and use it against the West. So this is going to be just die rolls plus whatever we roll. Gee, I rolled a 1 plus 1 is a 2. How wonderful. And the Russians rolled a 5 plus 1 is a 6. 2 to a 6 is a factory loss to the Germans, so their factory loss marker goes up to 3. Then they go up against the West, where it's +3 for the Germans, +2 for the West. We go to combat commitment. Both sides commit because the British see a chance to possibly get 2 factories down this turn, and the Germans are like, I need to try and get one of my factories back. I'm already hurting from losing one factory. So our die rolls will be halved. The Germans are at +3. 4 plus 3 is a 7. Halved to 3.5 rounds up to 4. So Germans have a net 4, and the British roll a 2 plus 2 is a 4. Halved is a 2, and on the combat results table, that's actually the defender, which is the British factory marker goes down 1 or goes up 1, and the Germans go down 1. So the Germans are back at their 2 lost factories, and the British are at their 4. So that's strategic warfare. Oh, not quite. I have to roll some dice here. German submarines come back in 2 turns. 1, 2. I'll get them back in October. And the British get their ultra back in 1 turn. Yeek. That figures. Oh well. On a strategic movement, the Axis do have a strategic move. Right here in Königsberg, there's a infantry unit that needs to get to the Eastern Front. He's going to go flying over here somewhere in the neighborhood of... I think I'm going to put him... Trying to think of where I'm the lightest. I'm sort of light right here in the center in front of Kursk and Kharkov. So I'm going to put him in the rail hex right in front of Kharkov. So he can maybe help backstop a breakthrough by the Russians. Planning for the worst there. The West doesn't have one. I mean, they could do some shenanigans in England, but it's not worth it. Moving the 1st Canadian round or something, but not worth it. And the Russians, the only thing that they can think of doing is pulling an airplane out to try and let it get reconstituted so they'd have a full factored airplane to come in and try and run some defenses at some point. I don't think it's worth it. I have one that's kind of off the front already at Stalingrad. This forces the Germans to use up some sorties, so they don't have their airplanes for their attack phase. So I'm going to not take a strategic movement phase, which takes us into the German operations phase. And we will, Germans have to move this aircraft up to Rostov. And then they will try to roll a 6 against the aircraft in Stalingrad because they're at -3. So only a 6 will give me a chance at a result against them. And they're at a -4. So the Germans roll a 4, which is not enough. only a 6 would do. So the Russians take 1 and the Germans take 1. So the Russians have an airplane. So they can defend these armies that are sitting here on the Don, right up by the Donets. They might even be able to throw it into an attack if I don't force them to use it in defense. So things don't look good in the south. Airplane in the center goes against the airplane in the center. I am at -2, he's at -4. So now a 5 or 6 gives me a chance to get a 2 for 1. And I rolled a 1, so I didn't. They each go up by 1. And the Germans just fly again. Since they're at 5, they'll both end up at 6. Don't even need to roll the dice. The central one will go after reserves. So same thing, I need a 5 or 6. Got a 2, so it's going to be the same kind of thing. The Russians will go up 2, the Germans will go up 2. The attack at Bologoya, I'm only -1 because I had sorties to spare last turn. And the Russians are still at +4. So Germans have a little bit more leeway to possibly get a 2 for 1. But not with a 2. That's a 1, so they take 1 sortie. The Russians take a sortie, and then I'll do it again just to make sure the Russian aircraft is used up. So kind of have to do that. Next thing, the Germans are going to play their surprise attack marker. They've got a lot of units here that they can get to. If they place it right there at 2250, there are 6 Russian units possibly that can be affected by that extra +1. So we'll see if it helps. I don't know. There are forests and stuff, so it's basically negating the forests and possibly a river defense, that kind of thing. It's not a huge help, but it might be just enough to let me kill some of these infantry that have no retreat routes, assuming that the 4th Panzer can do its job. Before I do the 4th Panzer, before I spend points anywhere, I'm going to spend 2 points to activate the Africa Corps, just to delay the British in the south, in the North Africa, possibly. So back to Russia. Now we're going to activate the 4th Panzer. I think I'm going to put the national tracks on this side over here. Might be a little bit easier for me to do this. That's another 2. So I'm down to 23. And I'm going to attack the 3rd shock. The Germans start off at +2 because they're German. They get +2 because they're armor. And their surprise attack marker gives them another one. So that's +5. Spends 2 movement points to attack, so I have 8 left. The Russians start off at +1 because they're elite, and because it's fair weather, the shock army gets an extra +1. So it's a +5 to a +2. Germans roll 5. +5 is a 10. Not bad. And the Germans roll a 5. +2 is a 7. A 10 to a 7 is just barely a DR. So we barely pushed him out of the hex. Now he's not going to retreat to 2150 because if the Germans made me retreat from there, they could take the hex, and the 4th shock would definitely be isolated, and he might even be able to take a pot shot at taking Rezev across the river with a surprise attack marker and an armored unit. He'd be at like +4 -2. He'd be like a +3 to, and that shock army's flipped, so it'd be +3 to a 0 as a possibility there. He'd have a couple attacks. So instead of allowing him to be able to pull that off, I'm going to go right on top of his surprise attack marker. And the Germans will spend another 2 to go after him and see what they can do. +5. 4 + 5 is a 9. 2 + 2. A 1. +2 is a 3. That's not good. A 9 to a 3 is a DD. I was hoping it was a DR. Okay, so I have to back up a space. And same thing, I don't want to go to 2151 and give him a chance to get an attack on Rezev. I don't want to give him that. So German will take that hex, kind of sticking his neck out, but the shock army was flipped, so that took away his +2. So the Germans are going to go ahead and spend 2 more movement points here and see if they can't, like, eliminate him with a good die roll. They're at +5. 6 + 5 is an 11. Oh my. And the Russians just have a straight die roll of a 2. That's dead, I think. Yeah, an 11 to 2 is actually a DE. So the Russians lose a willpower for the unit, and faction card came up over here. I want to put it over there. And the third shot goes into the eliminated box. So now the Germans have to think, do they want to take that hex? They have 4 movement points left. I think they want to go ahead and take that hex. The reason being, put this over here now. By taking that hex, that leaves 2252 is not a retreat route for the 30th. So if I decide to attack him, even though I'm not +1 from the surprise attack marker, it would push him out of the way where I could possibly get the 15th to move up and do something. It just depends. I still have 4 movement points left. And this is a no enemy zone of control space. So now I have a real dilemma. By being in a no enemy zone of control space, I can try to cut off that 30th Army, or I could move to 2151 and attack into Reserve. I would be +2 for German, +2 for armor, +1 for the surprise attack marker, which would be +5. And then I'd be -1 for the river and -1 for the city. So, and it would cost me 4 movement points. It would cost me 4 movement points to attack, so I can't do that attack. I had to have him retreat up there so I could do it. So I can't even pull off that attack. How very annoying, because it would cost me 1 movement point to move there. So the no enemy zone and control marker that would be placed here isn't really going to help me. I'm just going to go ahead and spend 3 points and try and attack the 51st. Just for kicks. Try and get a step on him. So I am a net of +4. So it's +2 for German, +2 for armor, +1 for surprise attack marker, -1 for woods. He can't retreat, so a retreat is as good as an attack for me. And he's not going to use his armor marker on this because 2 need to be saved for Leningrad, and there might be something more important to try and stop, depending on how all this infantry and stuff attacks. It would be more useful to stop an infantry. So we're going to see if it works. +4 to +2. Or +4 to 0. So Germans roll. Oh boy, 6 + 4 is a 10. And the Russians roll. 1. Oh my goodness. Goodness. A 10 to a 1 is a DE, kids. This is not looking good for the Russians. Okay. They lose the infantry unit. Oh, and they got to take down a willpower too for that infantry. So this armored unit managed to get 2 willpowers, cleared out 2 infantry, and he still has a movement point left. What do I want to do with that movement point? Oh, I could go to 2252. Oh no, but that makes these guys to have retreat route, so I don't want to do that. I don't want to give him retreat routes. Not in the plan here to give him retreat routes. Could go northeast to 2151, which would force the 4th shock to retreat into 2049 when I attack it. I can't get it isolated, unfortunately. Went too far for that. I probably shouldn't have taken that hex when I eliminated that unit. I was thinking I could do something with the no enemy zone of control. If I'd have stayed in the surprise attack marker, I could have attacked the 62nd. I still would have had 2 units, so it wouldn't have worked. Never mind. With 1 movement point, I'm not sure what's the best place to go. He's kind of really good where he's at, for the simple fact that he can't rail to 2152 or 2252. I could go to 2252 and make the 30th not having a retreat route, but then I would leave a retreat route for the 62nd. And I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to just stay where I'm at. 2 good defensive hexes get stopped from being strategically moved into. So I'm done with the Germans. I had to think that through. Sorry it took so long. The next one up, I think we're going to go ahead and use the Kursk infantry. See if he can do something. National tracks, take a point. Oh no, I don't want to move the Italians. Don't want them spending points in Russia when they should be spending them on their fleets. And then he will go 1, 2 to 25, 51, and then 3, 4, 5. So he has 3 movement points left. Basically, he gets 2 attacks on the 10th. Once again, the Russians are looking at this from a standpoint of 2 up north and maybe... do I use it now? I do basically have 1 to use, but I'm kind of worried about the 30th. I'm thinking of using it on him to try and keep the 3rd, because I'm looking at this, the 3rd Panzer could attack in here. If I get flipped and go to that river, then he could attack that. He could possibly run into Moscow, which would be horrible. Because not only is it I lose my capital and I lose 4 points, that's not the point. That hurts, but then he's in my railroad junction running to Kalinin, Yaroslav, Ryazan, Tula. He's basically, my strategic movement is really, really curtailed. If he gets even adjacent to Moscow, he can screw me up. So this could be, that's going to be much more huger. So the 10th is on his own. At the infantry is +2, +1 for the surprise attack marker, and -1 for the woods. So it's +2 to a +0. Let's see what happens. 5 + 2 is a 7. Not bad. And he rolls a 5 and laughs at me. So I'll spend my last 3 and try and get him again. +2. 2 + 2 is a 4. That doesn't do much. And he rolls a 6. 4 to a 6 is just an AS, not an AA. So that didn't work. Oh well. Obviously that's not the German army to use. Let's use the 17th. Spends 3 movement points, so he has 5 left to attack that hex, and he's +2 to 0. So 2 attacks this way. 3 + 2 is a 5 to a 3. 5 to a 3 I think is a DR. Yes it is. It is a DR, so he is flipped. Hello, he is flipped. My fingers could find the keyboard correctly. So he's flipped, and then I will go ahead and spend 3 more. So I have 2 left, because he's in a -2 now. So there's a 4-point split there. Let's see if I can get this guy. 4 + 2 is a 6. And at -2, the best he can roll, if you look at the combat results table, reason why I'm not rolling for the Russians, the Germans have a 6. The best I can roll is a 4. So no matter what happens, I end up losing a step because I can't retreat. So in the interest of speed, I just move the unit and take the willpower. And then the Germans could take the hex and then have 2 movement points. So they could move back into a rel. They could stay where they're at, move their 2 movement points to move to 2353. Or the more productive thing to do, I think, is to move to 2351 with my last 2 movement points. Because now I definitely have the 60-second isolated when time comes. I'm going to have to do something about this shock army, I think, for me to get a decent attack. Well, I can move him 1. No, that's 3. I only get 1 shot. Not good, not good, not good. +5 -2 is only a +3 to a 0. Let's see if we can move this shock army, if I can get him to retreat. So that leaves me with 6 movement points. I activated the 6th army. Let's do a quick count. 2 in the mid-east, so that's 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I should be at 20, and I don't think I've been taking stuff off. I didn't take that last infantry. I should be at 20 now. Okay. So this is basically a +2 to a +2. I get an extra +1 because of the surprise attack marker. Part of me wants to throw the airplane in, but I really want to save the airplane to possibly make another long shot at Leningrad. It keeps his tanks out of the battle, so he can't put tanks in here anyway. But if I were to use that airplane, then he would have fairly good confidence to be able to use an extra tanks marker. So we'll just try it at +3 to +2 and see what happens. 1 + 3 is a 4. 3 + 2 is a 5. 4 to a 5 is just a diamond. You almost got an AS out of that. So I spent another 2 movement points. Let's see, it'd be +6 in Leningrad, which means the best I could get would be a 6. And he would have a tank, so he'd have to roll 1 or a 2 for it to work. If I had an extra +2, I'm going to do a quick count here at Leningrad. If I have a tanks marker, that's 4. The first is 5. 6, 7 for the airplane. 8, 9 for that. It'd be +8. And he'd be +2. Best I could get would be a 7. Worst he could get would be a 3. So I mean, you have to roll 1 or 2. He has to roll 1 or 2 either way. I have to roll 5 or 6 either way. So I'm going to go ahead and use the airplane to try and make sure this guy moves. Quick math. So now I'm an extra +2. So this time I'm +5 to his +2. 6. I didn't need it. 6 plus 5 is an 11. 4 plus 2 is a 6. An 11 to a 6. You know, he just missed the DD. If I move here, then I'm definitely not having a problem. Then he could try to do shenanigans. How many? He's got 4 movement points, so he could. Yeah, that's not really good for me because he could get this guy through. I think I'm going to retreat up to the forest. Yeah, I think I'm going to retreat to the forest. The Germans will take the hacks. They only have 4 movement points left. Crossing the river would keep them from being able to attack the 62nd, so they will go ahead and attack the 4th Shock Army. They will only be +2 net because 1 for the surprise attack, 2 for German, -1 for the forest. The Russians are still at +2, so it's just a straight +2 to +2. I'm just trying to see if I can either get a step with a real lucky die roll or at least make him retreat so he's a little further away from me, I guess. You never know unless you roll the dice, right? 4 plus 2 is a 6. 5 plus 2 is a 7, so nothing happens. So that ends that activation. Now we will activate the 4th. Would help if I pick up the right thing. That puts me down to 19 points that I have left. He will move 1, 2 to 2249 through 2248. So he doesn't go from zone of control to zone of control. And then he will attack the 62nd. He is +2 for German, +1 for the surprise attack marker, and the 62nd is officially isolated, so that's another +2, so it's +5. And that cost me 5, so I have 3 movement points left. So I have 2 attacks at +5. Let's see if this works. +5 to a 0. And no, I'm not going to use the tanks marker here. I don't think it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. You can't get into Moscow. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's 7 to 2153. So yeah, I think I'm okay with just letting this go. 5 to a 0. I'm not going to waste a tanks marker here. Well, I could waste tank markers here, just try and stop him. If I get an attacker stopped, he's kind of like messed up, supply-wise. Maybe I do that. I think I'm going to do that. Russians are going to go ahead and commit tanks marker. So they're +2. So it's a +5 to a +2. The Germans roll. That's 6 plus 5 is an 11. What a waste of a tanks marker. The Russians are at +2. 3 plus 2 is a 5. 6 plus 5 is an 11. Is I +5? Let me check that. No, I'm only +4. Right? +2 for German, +1 for surprise attack, +5 for... Yes, I'm only +4. Sorry. So that's actually a net 10 for the Germans, not an 11. The Russians still are at a 5, and a 10 to a 5 is a DDR. If it had been an 11, I would have actually eliminated him right there, but no, that's just a DR. So he's flipped. Makes me attack again. put the tanks on the turn track marker. What am I doing? This is going to... Germans are going to take 2 segments to do their turn, it looks like. I'll spend the last 3 to just try and get rid of him. He's at -2 now. And I'm still at my +4 because he's isolated. Alright, 2 + 4 is a 6. He's at -2. Again, we're at that thing in the combat result table where a 6, if you're at -2, the best you can get is a retreat. He will be eliminated and lose a national will. So there's another one. And another unit goes into the eliminated box. Don't have any movement points left. I don't think I really want to take the hex. I kind of like being out here, kind of supporting this guy that's hanging in 2149. So I've got just a few minutes left before I go into the next step. Yeah, I think I'm going to end this video here. So this is the first part of the August 1942 turn. We're still in the middle of the German operations phase. So much went on with that surprise attack marker. There were so many die rolls and having to make decisions on what to commit and what not to commit that it just took me almost 30 minutes to just do that. So we're going to pick up next time with the beginning of the rest of the German operations phase, and we'll see how long that takes me. Maybe I'll be able to get in the West operations too, but I just don't know because there's lots of supply games we have to play down in North Africa as well. So this is Dren 608. This is the Me, Myself, and I campaign playthrough of the game Unconditional Surrender. Please leave comments about what you like and what you don't like. Please subscribe if you'd like to keep up with all the different parts of these episodes as they come through. And I will see you in just a little bit. Bye-bye.